Hi everybody and welcome back to Lost Genre Reddit Stories. This post is from the subreddit Am I the A-hole and it's by user muchcomment1327. Am I the a-hole for denying my ex his son after he abandoned us and I took the choice alone to give him up for adoption? I, 32 female, had a baby boy when I was 16. Yes, I know how that sounds like. No, we weren't careful. Judge me all you want on that front. I've dealt with that for years. Mike, 33 male, was my boyfriend then, and when I found out about my pregnancy, he did a disappearing act with the help from his family. Something future college star something. My parents were always blunt. What happened next was my choice. After a lot of thinking and deciding termination just wasn't for me, I chose to give up the baby for adoption. My parents knew a super sweet couple that were looking to adopt. We met and I just knew they were the right people. This turned from a teen mistake to an almost surrogacy. I started homeschool to finish my education and to have rest. The adoptive parents were with me for everything and even paid for most of the medical cost. The adoptive mother was a teacher, so she helped me with my schoolwork and to prepare for college. They were present for the birth and I refused to hold the baby. Instead, his actual mother did, and it was just right. I've stayed in the baby's life in a distant position as a special aunt. Well, he's no longer a baby and he knows who I am, but his mom is the same woman that raised him and I continue to be his special aunt. The only change is now he knows who to call if he needs a kidney. His sense of humor is like mine, go figure. We talk maybe once in a blue moon, which in all honesty is the best. He's happy and I don't regret giving him up to have a happy life. For my part, I married 6 years ago. My husband, Aaron, 44 male, was divorced in good terms with Bella, 40 female. They have 2 children, a boy that is 16 and a girl that is 19. Aaron made it clear since we began dating that his kids' approval was important and that Bella was a part of his life forever. Not as a spouse, but as a friend and mother to his kids. I also told Bella and him about my teen pregnancy. Well, to begin with the kids, my stepdaughter and I get along well. She's obviously closer to her mother, but she still does girls' days with me every so often. It's more like friends though. My stepson is incredibly close to me. He calls me his other mom and always asks me to be present for important events. We bonded when his childhood dog passed away as my cat died about the same time. Bella and I were best friends. I know people have complicated relationships with their partner's exes, but we always show respect to each other. I never tried to take her place. I know Aaron and her shared something special long before I was in the picture. That's their history, and I am a stepmom, not a mom. Her place in the kid's life is not up for competition. The reason for this background is that the whole mess with Mike started when I took my stepson to a medical appointment. It wasn't serious, though he did have to use anesthesia. Aaron and Bella both couldn't get the day off. They tried, but their jobs are on call and they cannot easily take time off. So I went on my own to be my stepson's support. I didn't realize Mike as one of the doctors. His real name, both first and last name, are incredibly common and it has been years. Not to mention, my priority was being my stepson's support and everything else was secondary. After my stepson was done, he was a bit out of it as expected. I was setting him up in the car and making sure he was comfortable when Mike came over. He told me he had been thinking about me and our son for so long, and he was glad our boy was okay. It really took me a few minutes for my brain to click on what was going on, and he kept on rambling about apologies and how he wasn't meant to be a father, blah blah blah. Eventually, I just sighed and loudly said, "This is not the baby I was pregnant with. I gave him up for adoption after I gave birth. I am a stepmother." My loopy stepson chimed in with, "Other mom!" I had to hold back a smirk to be honest. Mike was stunned by that and it gave me time to catch him up on the important details. I gave up the baby, he knows what happened and why I gave him up. I married a man with 2 children, I am happy and don't want him in my life. And no, I won't give him contact information for the adoptive family. He is 16 years too late. That was the end of it, and I got in my car to get my stepson home to rest. Since then, Mike found me on social media and has been painting this sob story about me denying him a chance to be a father. How I was a poor mother that threw away her child to raise someone else's children. I'm basically the she-devil, apparently. Most of our former classmates that saw the post reminded him that he left me. Some of his high school friends even pointed out he laughed about leaving me pregnant. I didn't know that part. A few of his relatives have reached out to bash me about taking Mike's chance to be a father, that it made me a poor Christian. I'm not. I'm Jewish to begin with. A few friends did tell me it was a bitch move to give the baby up without telling Mike. I don't personally think I was in the wrong, but in case I decided to leave the judgment to the internet masses. So Reddit, am I the a-hole? OP, no, you're not the a-hole. You didn't deny Mike a chance to be a father. He walked away from it himself. He made his choice and now he has to deal with the consequences. You did what was best for your child and your decision led him to being raised in a loving, stable home. Mike doesn't get to rewrite history just because he suddenly feels guilty. If I was you, the first thing I'd do is set clear boundaries and shut down the noise. Mike and his relatives have zero say in your life. Period. You should also talk to your husband to let him know about this situation because Mike shouldn't drag your family into his mess. And the rest is just live your life without any guilt. You didn't do anything wrong. What do you guys think? Let me know in the comment section, and now let's check out the community comments. Tis a Wizard says, when he abandoned you and his son, he made the choice of not being a part of his or your life, and you don't need to tell him anything else. The decision of adoption was yours, and you did what you think was right, and that's normal. You didn't deny him anything, he did it himself, not the a-hole. Hadge says, these people are effing psycho. Block, block, block. Your bio kid might decide for himself to try and find his bio dad one day, but it's your job to defend his privacy until then, and make sure his decision is informed. He knows that his bio dad is a complete ass. And OP responds, I told him everything when his parents decided it was time to tell him who I really was. I didn't make Mike into a villain, just said he left after I told him I was pregnant and never reached out. He's been clear that while I am his biological mother and Mike is his biological father, he doesn't see either of us as parents. I am his aunt and Mike is a stranger. CAD9057 says, warn the adoptive parents about the situation. They have a right to know and can protect the child. And OP responds, already done. They do live in another state, so that gives them some space. The Elf Prince says, these effing people, the audacity. I'm glad our son is okay. You mean the one you laughed about leaving me pregnant with because, checks notes, you were going to be a college star? Get effed, dude. It's been over a decade. You had to be told this wasn't your kid because you never even checked in post-birth with OP. Dude is lucky all OP did is smirk. We would have had words if it was me. Edit Tad, this is a clear cut, not the a-hole, and OP, you are a saint for putting up with this BS. And OP responds, oh trust me, I wanted to smack him, but I had the closest thing to a drunk teen in my car that needed to get home to take a nap. So, priorities. The bad mood left me during the drive. Teens under anesthesia are hilarious. OP's edit, the adoptive parents and bio child have a phone number to contact Mike's parents if they want. I have no say if they do or not, I just won't give Mike any information on them. Well, the community agrees that OP is not the a-hole, so now let's move on to the update to see how this story ends. This is probably the one and only update I'll be doing because, to be honest, I got other things to do and I have my main Reddit account for lurking. I'm going to start with the important matter. A lot of people were worried about my biological kid and what he wished when it came to Mike. Well, I got his permission to post this. He spoke to Mike once a few days after I told him where he could find Mike. I won't share all the details, only the final decision. There won't be any more contact between them. The kid doesn't want a second dad and Mike wasn't willing to be in his life unless he had the position of dad. So he's going no contact with Mike. There was more to it, but it's very personal and I feel it's not my place to share it. The kid and I will continue to have a relationship as aunt and nephew. Also, he knows whatever he needs medically, I'll always be first in line to give blood, kidney, etc. For those wondering why Mike is so big into contact with the kid, I found out a few details via his friends. Mike can have more kids, he just hasn't had a stable relationship in years, which I can believe since I finally had enough and decided to accept going to have coffee with him to get some things squared away. My husband came, of course, but he sat at another table to let me deal with it. I asked him to. The conversation was a crap show, to be honest. Mike brought me flowers and chocolate-covered strawberries, my old favorites. He treated it all like some date. I nipped that in the bud immediately. I introduced my husband and told him we were very much in love and happy, so I don't appreciate any attempts at unwanted romance. Once we sat down, he started by telling me what I knew about him having failed relationships. He said that he felt no woman could meet his standards for a wife and mother to his children since he already saw me as that. He claims he feels guilty for choosing college over me and our baby. He was well aware of the court dates regarding custody and I was trying to put the baby up for adoption. When he saw me taking care of my stepson, he thought I had chickened out of giving the baby away. Seeing me be all caring of our baby boy made him think how great it would be if the three of us could be a family and maybe have a bigger family down the road. He had the gall to ask me if I would consider divorcing my husband and try to fight for custody of our son. I have to admit, I laughed in his face. I probably was overly cruel, but I had years of stress, heartache, and judgmental encounters to drop on him. I told him all I saw in him was a coward. A coward that instead of staying to make adult decisions, decided to run with help of mommy and daddy. That any love I had for him died the day I had to push out a full human being, and instead of knowing I had support from him, there was a big empty spot where the dad was supposed to be. That I almost ruined my life and had to throw away prom, senior pictures, and even graduation because I was far too pregnant to party, appear on the yearbook, or walk into stage to get my diploma. He got to party and enjoy life while I had to fight tooth and nail for an inch of respect, yet we both had unprotected sex. The only difference is his penis wasn't big enough to pop a baby out or satisfy a woman to begin with. That was a bit mean, but not sorry. After I calmed down, I simply told him I had a happy life with a man that loves me. Great stepkids that are the greatest gift. A best friend who lets me be a stepmom to her children. On top of that, I had a nephew who I adore and who, despite our history as biological mother and child, he still loves me as his special aunt rather than hate me. My family is perfect because he's not a part of it and I have no intentions to live in his fantasy, and that I can't wait to get pregnant with my husband's child to add to that perfection. I also told him to leave our biological kid alone. He has made his choice and it is up to him if he ever reaches out for Mike. I also let him know I would be making a formal complaint to his hospital for his harassment. Good thing my husband took screenshots because by the time we got home, Mike had deleted all of the posts. A lot of his former friends did repost screenshots making fun of him. The silver line in all of this is that I have reconnected with my high school classmates, and to be honest, they are great people. Seems Mike is in a handful that stayed in his school hype mindset. It's been about 3 days and no signs of Mike. My husband did get the biggest ego boost when he overheard me going off on Mike and has been insufferable in a good way. So there's mostly good news. Hopefully one of these days we'll get even more good news since we actually are excited at the idea of having a baby together. Well, OP, I have nothing to say except well done. Great job at shutting down Mike and moving on. You should follow through with telling his hospital about his harassment. Very unprofessional. But other than that, here's wishing you and your family the best in the future, OP. Thanks so much for sharing and take care. And now, let's move on to the next post that also has an update. This post is from the subreddit Am I the A-hole, and it's by user PotentialPie7714. Am I the a-hole for blaming my nephew for using my credit card without my permission? So let me start off with I'm pretty bad at checking the details on my bank statements, but recently something wasn't right. So I went through every single one for the past year, and there were over 100 charges from PlayStation. I only had 4 purchases on my 2 PlayStations account in a single year, so I panicked as someone had my credit card information. In all, the total charges were around $1,500. I contacted both of my siblings whose kids also have accounts and asked nicely if their kids may have purchased anything using my bank account before I make a dispute. Both said no, so I went ahead and called PlayStation and my bank. The bank was able to charge back the past few months and the rest is under investigation. Well, a few days later, I get a frantic call from my teenage nephew who says his PlayStation account was permabanned. I asked him if he was sure he didn't buy anything with a credit card after I gave him a several $100 PlayStation gift card for his birthday this summer to spend on stuff. He again denied. So I have his email logins and sure enough, it was purchases he made to his account. All the stuff he plays. Then he starts to say maybe he bought a few items here and there. Now my sister is pissed at me. She says I must have added my credit card information to buy him something at some point in time and it was all my fault he was making purchases from my card. If it were her card, she'd get an alert. Never that he may have taken my credit card information, no. She doesn't want him to lose his account and said she'll call PlayStation to pay for it all. She said he always asks and she gets alerts and doesn't understand that I didn't, so I shouldn't blame him. I said, well, he knew he was spending someone else's money, so why is it my fault? And that he stopped asking for permission to make purchases because no one stopped him. After that, she said I was blaming her kid for everything. He's 15 years old. So, am I the a-hole here? No, OP, you're not the a-hole. Your nephew stole from you. Whether it was intentional or just reckless, he knew he wasn't using his own money. That's not your fault, and your sister is trying to shift the blame onto you is just her refusing to hold her kid accountable. You caught the fraud, disputed the charges, and now the consequences are playing out exactly as they should. I would let my nephew handle his own mess. He's old enough to understand that stealing has consequences. Your nephew needs to learn. The moral of the story here is don't steal other people's money. And your sister shouldn't be shielding him from the consequences. What do you guys think? Let me know in the comment section. And now let's move on to the community comments. Jesse Colt says, not the a-hole. If your sister comes back at you, tell her you specifically asked the family if any of them were the ones who made the charges before you disputed them. No one admitted to it, so your only conclusion was that someone stole your credit card information and racked up the charges. So you had no choice but to dispute the charges. Your nephew is not only a thief, but a liar too. It is now up to your sister and nephew to resolve the issue with PlayStation by repaying the disputed charges along with any fees that they are going to get hit with for the disputes. Your sister is right about one thing though, you need to lock down your activity. Most credit cards and banks have options to add notifications of charges so that you get an alert whenever there are charges made. You need to go enable that option on every card you have and account that you have. You should also probably review your credit reports as well and then lock those also as preventative measures. And Dopey responds, I already cancelled that card and will make sure to add the alerts. I don't have many credit cards, but I will be sure to on those as well. Thank you. MC Zuzi says, you are not the a-hole and I am really worried for your nephew. His mother is completely incompetent and she seems determined to send her boy out into the world without even the most basic ethics and standards. You are not going to change her, she just doesn't have the intelligence and morals to make reasonable choices or to treat people with the most basic respect. I would not interact with her. And Opie responds, and this is certainly not the first time he's been in deep trouble. I was very shocked with how she reacted as she is usually not like this. Sad face. And Canadian 987 says, your sister thinks it's okay for her son to steal, and her major concern is that her son doesn't lose his PlayStation account? I can see jail in this one's future. I don't think they have a PlayStation in jail though, not the a-hole. And Opie responds, yep, that's her concern, not the fact that he spent $1,500 that wasn't his. I'm sure they have a different kind of PlayStation there. Well, the community agrees that OP is not the a-hole. So now let's move on to the update to see how this story ends. After an intense argument, she was still denying he made the charges at all. I was finally able to show her each and every transaction. Before, I had only explained and she didn't believe me. After seeing the evidence, he finally fessed up. He claimed he thought it was her card. She will be paying me for all the money he used on my account and will not be getting the PS5 back until he works to pay it off. Even then, she may not let him have it. He insists that he will be paying us both double for our troubles. But the real damage done here is the trust I have in both of them. Well, OP, that's the thing about trust. It is so easy to lose it and incredibly difficult to earn. But at least your sister is gonna make him pay and she's gonna make you whole. So here's wishing you the best, OP. Thanks for sharing and take care. And that's it for today's video. Thank you so much for taking the time to watch it. Now, if you've gotten to this point in the video, I assume that you like these stories that I'm reading out. So here are a couple more that you might enjoy. And if you don't have any time to watch another story right now, save it for later. And also, don't forget to hit that subscribe button.